I owe you an explanation with these rankings updates. And honestly, if your draft hasn't happened yet, you may want to avoid these players. And if your draft has happened, I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to sell them. Now, obviously, the two running backs we're going to talk out of the gate, they're very, very, very good. And you should still draft them at the right price. But I did move Bijan Robinson down from my running back 1 to my running back 3. The explanation is simple. We have the right tackle for the Atlanta Falcons going down for the season, and that is crucial because Michael Penix is a left-handed quarterback. And I understand you're going to say, okay, well, Mason, are we overreacting? This may not be that big of a deal. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm an offensive line expert. But what I can do is I can look at Las Vegas Sportsbook's data, and we can take what they were previously projecting for this offense and now look at what they are doing. So previously, the Atlanta Falcons projected to be about a middle-of-the-road average team this year. I love the Bijan Robinson profile. I love the bell cow usage. I love the receiving usage. Now they project to be a bottom 10 offense. If we actually look at implied team totals in weeks 1 through 14 for the regular fantasy football season, you have the Atlanta Falcons now only being ahead of the New Orleans Saints, the Cleveland Browns, the Giants, the Jets, the Titans, and the Raiders. And if we look at every other one of these teams, we're all kind of in consensus that we agree, yeah, if you like a running back in Cleveland, you should put a discount on him because of the overall offense. We kind of agree, yeah, maybe you should put a discount on Alvin Kamara because of the overall offense. But that's not currently being priced in for Bijan Robinson. So again, I just want to go out there and say, Bijan's fallen from my RB1 to my RB3. If you have them and you could flip them for either Barkley or Gibbs before people really understand what this offensive line injury means, I wouldn't fault you at all for it. And if you want to make sure you can stay up to date with all my rankings updates through the entire season, both weekly and rest of season, you can get the 2025 flockfantasy.com season pass. That's not only going to get you access to all the updated rankings, but it's going to get you access to all the tools you need to win your fantasy league this year, including the trade calculator, trade finder, my team's page, everything that you see in this video as well. And if you use code FLOCK, it's only going to be a $34 one-time payment, not even a subscription. Plus you'll get vouchers to ask me start sit questions and trade questions that I'll answer in the live streams we're doing every day during the season. I'm going to leave the link in the description and comment section. Now, Omarion Hampton is a running back that I don't think you need to run out there and sell, but I at least need to say that he does have a few red flags now. So I had already moved Omarion Hampton behind Kyren Williams in our rankings earlier this month because we had the left tackle for the Los Angeles Chargers going down for the season, which we've already discussed. But now you actually have Najee Harris not only back at practice, but he's running around catching the football. So it actually looks like he can open that second eye. And I'm still going to rank Omarion Hampton as a must-start running back week 1. I'm still going to rank Omarion Hampton as a super high-end RB2 this year and a potentially low-end RB1 as well, because I still think that he's an elite-level prospect. I still think this is a good offensive line, even if it's not an elite offensive line anymore. I just want to make sure that we are in consensus valuing Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, and Kyren Williams now ahead of Omarion Hampton, given the developments with Najee Harris, as well as the downgrade that this offensive line saw earlier this month. Now, going over and looking at some of these other running backs that I think, honestly, you may be able to sell high at this point. James Cook is steaming up draft boards right now. Like, if we are looking at James Cook, I have him ranked as my running back 14, back-to-back with Omarion Hampton as quality high-end RB2s, but I at least need to discuss the red flags that you potentially have with Cook. If we go over and we look at what we have with the player comparison for James Cook on flockfantasy.com, you will see that, yes, he's improved for 3 years straight. He's gone from 6.6 points per game to 13.7 to 16.7. However, his usage numbers were actually better in 2023 than they were in 2024. You actually had James Cook playing 55% of the snaps in 2023. That fell down to 49% of the snaps this past season. You actually saw him be 25th in the NFL in rushing attempts this past year and 40th in the NFL in targets per game as well, according to flockfantasy.com. And a big concern that I'm going to have for James Cook is if we see the overall touchdown regression, because we had James Cook actually giving you his best season from a fantasy points perspective last year because he did average 0.94 carries inside the 5-yard line. And if we go back and we look at what he did as a rookie, he had 0 carries the entire season inside the 5-yard line. As a second-year player, he was 45th in the NFL with carries inside the 5-yard line. So he jumped up from 32nd in the league in 2023 to second in the league in total touchdowns per game. So all the usage stuff for James Cook tells me, well, you know what? Yes, he was able to have the best season of his NFL career last year, but it was just solely based off touchdowns. And I think we expect that there was actually going to be more passing touchdowns in Buffalo this year than rushing. Because we look at 2024, and yes, you did have 32 rushing touchdowns for the Buffalo Bills in comparison to only 30 passing touchdowns. We can go back to 2023, where you had 29 passing touchdowns to 22 rushing touchdowns. We can go back to 2022, where we can see you had 35 passing touchdowns to 15 rushing touchdowns. We can go to 2021, you can see you had 36 passing touchdowns to 20 rushing touchdowns. You can go to 2020, you had 40 passing touchdowns to 16 rushing touchdowns. We can go to 2019, where you had 21 passing touchdowns to 13 rushing TDs. So every year of Josh Allen's NFL career, we have seen the Buffalo Bills be dramatically ahead in the passing touchdown category in comparison to rushing TDs. It is extremely rare that you ever see an offense with more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns. And given the history of the Buffalo Bills offense, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if this regresses back to what we've actually had in the past for Buffalo. If we go through and look at the range of outcomes tool for James Cook, what we are actually going to look at is rushing attempts per game, receptions per game, rushing yards per game, and receiving yards per game, plus PPR points, and take all the closest comparable seasons that we've had since the year 2008. And what we typically see with these players that are great based off of touchdown numbers rather than just pure volume numbers is you typically see them come back down to earth. You actually only had 3 players improving, and that was Knowshon Moreno from 2012 to 2013, James Conner from 2020 to 2021, and Latavius Murray from 2015 to 2016. But a lot of these other guys actually you did see some regression for. So I think James Cook, still a fine running back. You love the contract extension, but I do expect that we have some regression for him overall. Now, James Conner's a running back that I am rooting for this season. I had him as my RB1 in the Flock League last year, and because I went 0 RB in that format, I really needed some running back production, and he came through for us in a big time way, where James Conner last year had 15.86 points per game. And at the same time, it was the first year in his entire NFL career where he played 16 games. Because we can go through and we can look at a laundry list of career injuries that James Conner has suffered. And the biggest concern that I'm going to have is all the sentiment coming out of Arizona at this point, where they're talking about Trey Benson splitting this backfield with James Conner, where they're reminding us, yes, that we took Trey Benson in the 3rd round of last year's draft class. He was either viewed as the best or the second best running back in the entire class. And off of very limited volume last season, Trey Benson did impress to the upside. And a big concern that I'm going to have for James Conner is not only the running back that has the long list of injuries, but at the same time, the historical trend for running backs falling off at 30 years old. Now, I completely understand Derrick Henry got better at 30 years old last year, and I was on the wrong side of history, and I did not think that Derrick Henry was a good pick, and he absolutely smashed, changing his situation from the Tennessee Titans to the Baltimore Ravens. We should have taken into account how much better the offense was in Baltimore than it was in Tennessee. But the situation hasn't changed at all in Arizona. The only thing that's changed is Trey Benson has a little more NFL experience. And we go through and we look at this historical trend from running backs that had similar age 29 years to James Conner. You had Aaron Jones, LT, Steven Jackson, Rashad Jennings, LaShawn McCoy, David Johnson, Jamal Charles. And you can see some of these running backs like Jamal Charles falling from 20 points per game at 29 to 4.4 the following season. David Johnson falling from 15 points per game down to 6. LaShawn McCoy falling from 16 points per game down to 9. We've seen it over and over and over again for these 30-year-old running backs to fall off a cliff. And with Conner specifically, I know people are kind of discounting the age impact on him because of what Derrick Henry did last year. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you can't just look at one recent example and say, oh, okay, the long list of data that we have going back to the year 2008 is irrelevant, especially with the context that Derrick Henry completely changed his situations to stop that trend. Now, our next running back is going to be Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, I have ranked at RB27, and Aaron Jones is a running back that we've actually seen the juice fall right out of. Where if we go back and we look at Aaron Jones when he was a top 12 running back in fantasy, you can see him in 2022 averaging 14.5 points per game, a 29% juke rate. You can see in 2021 where he averaged 15 points per game, he had a 27% juke rate. You can see in 2020 when he averaged 18.5 points per game, 22% juke rate. 2019 when he was at 19 points per game, 30% juke rate. What has Aaron Jones done over the past 2 seasons? You've seen that juke rate fall down to 18 and 16% over the past 2 seasons. And at the same time, we've seen him post the worst yards per carry numbers that he has ever had. And you sprinkle on the fact that he's actually getting used as a receiver less than he did before. We can see that Aaron Jones had 3.6 targets per game this past year, which was the lowest mark that he's had since 2018. So Aaron Jones is a running back that there are signs pointing to the fall off maybe have already occurred. And then you see the Minnesota Vikings go out there and they decide to trade for Jordan Mason, not just trade for Jordan Mason, but at the same time, then sign him and give him $10 million. And I know everybody's going to go, Mason, age doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at the data. If we look at Aaron Jones's age 30 season, the only running backs that improved from age 30 to 31 that comp similarly were Raheem Mostert, where he had the craziest season you could ever possibly imagine with the Miami Dolphins in 2023. You had LT got slightly better to 14.5 points per game. And then everybody else got worse. Matt Forte fell off a cliff. Rashad Jennings stayed about the same. Frank Gore fell. Justin Forsett fell off a cliff. D'Angelo Williams fell off a cliff. And Mark Ingram fell off a cliff. So 31-year-old running backs are going to get worse. Aaron Jones, they made improvements to the offensive line, but they've actually brought in more competition for him. Now, there is no running back I want to be more wrong on with this video than Travis Etienne. I recently traded for Travis Etienne in the Flock League. And I'm going to be honest with you, one of the reasons I did this was I was hoping that a Jacksonville Jaguar running back was going to get traded before the season. I thought it may have been Tank Bigsby. I thought it may have been Bijan Robinson. I thought it may have been Travis Etienne himself. And it's still possible that one of the running backs gets dealt because right now you have potentially a 3-man committee in Jacksonville where technically Travis Etienne is listed as the starting running back on the depth chart, but we are actually getting repeated report after report after report that Tank Bigsby is going to have just as large of a role, if not the true starting role here with the new coaching staff. Now, why I am less optimistic of a Travis Etienne trade or a Tank Bigsby trade as I was beforehand is just going back over and looking at what we had when it comes to the NFL cut day. NFL cut day, where they had to get down to the 53, occurred earlier this week. That's typically a day where you are going to see a lot of these random trades, teams and general managers just restructuring their overall rosters. And I thought that was a good shot that we saw Tank Bigsby sent to the Chicago Bears. And if that would have happened, then Travis Etienne, limited competition, potentially a much better offense with the new coaching staff and Travis Hunter, and a coaching staff that really unlocked Bucky Irving and the rush game for Tampa last season. But I don't know. I mean, now you're going to be squeezed for touches. We go through and we look at Travis Etienne last year. The dude was absolute dog water. I mean, you can see he was sitting there 3.7 yards per attempt, fell down to only playing 55% of the snaps, fell from 16.6 fantasy points per game down to 8.6. I know he was banged up, but we go through and we look at the running backs that had the closest age 25 seasons to Travis Etienne since the year 2008. You had Alexander Madison, Jamal Williams, Stark, Stewart, Forsett, Powell, Rashad Jennings, Jerome Ford, and A.J. Dillon. And I'm not that excited to sit here and draft freaking Jerome Ford this year. So if you can find a league mate in your league that's willing to pay for Travis Etienne as if he is a startable running back early in the season, I would try to shop him. I've honestly been trying to sell him in the Flock League, and it's been very, very tough. Now, going over and looking at Joe Mixon may be a total 0 at this point. Joe Mixon was already on the decline. Don't get me wrong. If you were looking at Joe Mixon, yes, he did survive this past season in Houston in terms of just the overall fantasy points, but you actually saw Joe Mixon play a lower snap rate than any year of his NFL career since his rookie season. And at the same time, we can go back and can look at the historical trends, and we can see that age 28-year-old running backs that comp similarly to Joe Mixon, like Jamal Charles, Steven Jackson, Aaron Jones, Mark Ingram, Marshawn Lynch, Fred Jackson, DeMarco Murray, Chris Johnson, Darren McFadden, every single one of them got worse at age 29. You are on the natural downwards trajectory if you are a running back in your age 29 season, especially one that's had as many carries on his body as Mixon has. And then we look at the actions that the Houston Texans have taken this offseason, where they went out there and they drafted Woody Marks to be their third down running back. Not only did they draft Woody Marks, but they went out of their way and they signed Nick Chubb as well, ultimately giving them the insurance in case Mixon were to miss. Then Joe Mixon gets put on the IR, and we have a report coming out today that the general manager is non-committal on if Joe Mixon is going to be playing at all this season. And if that's the case, he's not playing. And I know this is maybe super aggressive for me to say, and maybe I shouldn't say it because I can just end up on Old Takes Exposed or whatever it's called. But the fact of the matter is 9 times out of 10 with these injured guys, the general manager, the coaching staff, they're optimistic. They're going to lie to us to the positive. They're going to tell us, hey, this player is showing good progress. Don't worry about it. For us on August 27th to get the statement that I'm not going to commit to if this dude's playing or not this year, it's over. I moved Joe Mixon down to being like a RB4 in my rankings. The offensive line isn't that good either. Like, I think he's right there with like Tank Bigsby, Braylon Allen, and honestly, I think Thomas, the guy who's editing this video, has him in the Flock League, and I have Braylon Allen. If he sent me Joe Mixon for Braylon Allen, I don't know if I would accept. Now, going over and looking at Bijan Robinson, I never thought I would include Bijan Robinson in one of these videos because I think we're all in agreement Bijan Robinson is total dust in the wind at this point. At the very best, he's Tyler Algier, where the starter would go down in front of him, then cool, you can go ahead and start him. Like, Bijan Robinson's never been great for fantasy. I mean, his best year of his NFL career, he averaged 13 points per game. We can actually see this past year, he only handled 41% of the carries for the Commanders, and he had 6% team target share. The offense was great, and he was a mid RB3. We go ahead and we look at Bijan Robinson with the range of outcomes. I mean, it's not great. The only guy that got better from 25 to 26 with this profile was James Conner. So with him in San Francisco now, I never thought you could be able to trade him, but I'm actually seeing trades that get sent to me in the live streams that we're doing every single day, answering your trade questions. And I'm seeing people just use Bijan Robinson as some trade bait and actually get deals done, get 2-for-1 upgrades, where they're going through and they're sending Bijan Robinson and a wide receiver that went in the 4th round to go and get a wide receiver that went at the beginning of the 3rd round. And if you can make that deal, by all means, go for it, because Bijan Robinson's effectively a 0 at this point. But I think that's all I got for you. I really hope I was able to help you out with this video. And again, if you have not done so already, go get the 2025 flockfantasy.com season pass. It is going to be the #1 reason why you win your fantasy football league this year. It's only $34. It's a one-time payment, not even a subscription. And if you use code FLOCK, you're going to be getting free vouchers for me to answer your start-sit questions and your trade questions in the stream that we're doing every single day during the year. Plus, you're going to get access to all the updated rankings, all the updated cheat sheets, the whole 9 yards, all the way until January 1st, plus all the tools on the site. So take advantage of that. I'll leave the link in the description. I'll leave the link in the comment section, and I hope I get to see you out in the live stream later tonight.